There we go, everybody. Morning. Welcome to Red Morning. This one's going to be a bit of a different episode today. I had a surprise set up for you guys. Unfortunately, Carl had to be away for this week, and I was going to bring in another one of the guys that you've probably never heard of, but you've probably learned a lot from. It was going to be one of the moderators from the Red Pill. He unfortunately broke his foot, and so we're going to move forward here just doing solo. Luckily, I've got a topic and some coffee. If you can't tell, I've got a bit of a tan now. Was just down with my brother, and that's why I was late, because I still had my clock set to Island Standard Time, and I realized I'm leaving you guys waiting for me, which is not cool. But I saw a couple of you are still waiting, so I appreciate it. Yes, Mr. Jackson. I got the Le Croisette, the full set. We even got a fucking butter dish. Let me pour this thing out here. The big topic today I'm going to go over is, there we go, is about building a male action plan. So if you guys don't know, that was a term coined by Athol Kay back when he wrote the original book, The Male Action Plan. And this was before, I think it was before Rational Male. I'd have to confirm with Rollo on this one. The timeline's a bit messed up. So what he had done was he kind of built a roadmap for a lot of guys who are in dead bedrooms, how to get their life back on track, whether or not their wife decides to come along for the ride. It's kind of a tragic tale. So for those who don't know, Athol Kay, one of the original red-pilled guys, I think he came in right after Royce, Roosh, and Rollo. Eventually, things started to become very popular, and so he brought on his wife and a couple female moderators for his married man sex life primer forums, as well as for the male action plan. So over the course of, I can't remember how many years, what had happened was they'd removed the male from it. It became the mindful attraction plan. It's just very weird, something that was designed to help men, and they had to remove every reference to the men in it. And then the women in the forum stopped focusing on having guys get the sex they want within a fulfilling relationship, and they ended up just shaming the guys. It's very tragic, and eventually the guys just left. And it was one of those messages, it's one of those lessons I've always learned early on when you're in this space, is that girls always try and invade male spaces. It's not that they're malicious and they want to beat it up. It's just you see a large collection of men in a group. Naturally, there's going to be a hierarchy, and there's always some girl that's going to be attracted to it for whatever reason. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it's just friendship. Maybe she's looking for a husband. Who knows? But they're just drawn to it. And then once they get in there, two things happen. And this is me largely quoting a guy who's called Ian Ironwood. He's another one of the Athol Kay aged guys there. Is the focus of the group will change. The original dynamics are guys getting together and focusing on whatever the mission is. Hey, salute, King Nick. So for example, the Red Man Group, our mission there is to talk sexual dynamics and positive male influences on a podcast. If we brought a girl on the cast, maybe not with us, but in general, what happens is guys tend to switch that focus from focusing on the mission to focusing on establishing themselves at the top of the pecking order to attract the women. And then once the girl gets that level of power, eventually somebody else will bring a second girl in, and then they do what Ian Wood called a pivot. So between the two of them, they kind of divide and conquer and take over the group and use it for their own purposes, and that's when you switch from a male social matrix to a female social matrix. He's got some really good writings on this. I'll probably reference it. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the chat. I don't want to be that guy that's hunting for links while we're talking here, but if you look up male social matrix, and if you have to add Ironwood at the end of it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so see, Zoltan Zakkas has it here. They want attention of large groups of men. It's intoxicating. They can't help themselves. And if you have a hard time understanding it, just picture why you would head out to go to the beach to see a bunch of girls in bikinis, because they're there. Same reason you'll go to a bar when a lot of hot girls in there. You just want access. Whether you use anything with the access or whether you just like knowing it's there, it's irrelevant. Back to the male action plan. So once he switched it over to mindful attraction plan, the guys eventually started leaving, because that's usually what happens in these spaces. If you have a male-focused space and it no longer fulfills its mission, you're eventually going to start leaking members, which is really tragic. And then, from what I understand, they had some financial troubles from it, and it's a really, really tragic story. And it's something I always keep in mind. That's why you're never going to see me do any wife shilling on here, bringing the girl on, and I'm not a fan of it. I mean, if other guys do, I'm not judging them. I just keep that in the back of my mind. Now, the thing is, for you guys, we're going to talk about how to start a map. The way it would work when you would first get into Married Red Pill, you would usually post what we call a victim puke. It's not because you're told to, it's not from the rules. Everybody just has this need to be told that like they're okay. So they would tell their, as I call it, the Batman origin story, and it would always describe things from the wife's frame. So if you watched, I put out a bunch of one-clip commercials on this, and you're going to see one where Carl and I are talking about how a guy is not the main character in his own story. It's a very good one. Take a look through my archives there. They should be in the playlist. But so a guy will come in and he will essentially describe his wife. My wife does this. My wife does that. My wife never does this. What do I do? And it's always, what do I do? It's never, how do I, like, they never have a goal when they come in. They just know there's this general sense of frustration and a grievance, but they can't articulate it because they've never actually used their own mental point of origin. So our first strategy on that one, I call it, and it's something I adopted and I brought in there, which was kind of nice. It was something I learned from Fleet School. And this is something, if any of you are in managerial roles in that, in something that has a lot of men on it, you could probably do well with. So my first day of a course, the instructors all told me, when you get there, find somebody who does something wrong. It doesn't matter how small, how slight it is. You take them out of the class and you berate them up and down, dress them down. Make sure it's within earshot of the rest of the class. And let them back in the class, go have a coffee, come back, and never yell again during the course. And it was goddamn brilliant. One of the other teachers, a buddy of mine, he didn't do that, and his class tended to always push boundaries against him. My class, though, was like, and the best part is the quieter I got, the more freaked out they got, because they were kind of expecting that yelling, but it never came. They even talked about that when we had our course parties after, so it's pretty cool. So what we do then, when the guy first comes in, he's got his wife's head up he's got his head up his wife's ass, and all he can talk about is her, in a reactive sense. Like, he's not proactive, he's very reactive. He doesn't have a goal. And so it's an ego crushing moment. Like, I got it. Everybody gets it. When I got on there, I got called, well, I guess I don't want to get demonetized, so I can't tell you the term, but it starts with F and it rhymes with maggots. And what happens is one of two things. If a guy is too ego invested, he's just going to worry about you treating him with respect. They actually use the word respect specifically. And then in that case, you keep piling on to he's either going to quit or he's going to realize, no, I did TQ3, which is the course right after BMQ. So anyways, the guy will realize that, and then eventually you have this moment where, like, look, you came here, man. You're that desperate that you came to random people on the internet. Yeah, it's a naval course. You come to random people on the internet, and then guys kind of get out of their ego, and they're like, all right, fine. Like, look, I get it. I'm a maggot, whatever. What do I do now? And then that's when you realize you can actually get through to somebody. And that's why I say never red pill your friends, because you're never going to get through to somebody while they're still ego invested in themselves. And so it was a really good way of weeding out those who wanted to with those who didn't. And then once that happens, you immediately getting them on. And this is something else I'm going to break here. The misconception that a lot of red pill guys keep saying it's strong list 5x5. That's all you do. That's the red pill workout. And I think they missed the point of that workout. So while you're building frame, the easiest, best bang for your buck as far as demonstrations of higher value is getting a good gym workout. Now, a lot of guys, they're in their 40s. They've never worked out a day in their life, or they haven't touched it since high school. Strong lifts 5x5 is the simplest, oldest, and hardest to screw up program in existence. It doesn't matter what your goals are. It's one of those ones that'll get you started for the first 3 months. And you know, if you can get a guy to work out for 3 months consistently and make some gains, that he's able to do the map. So it's a lot of this is more so testing a guy to see if he's capable. And that's where And then once guys kind of shed their ego, they kind of understand how it works. Like everybody's berating them and hard on them because they don't want to waste their time. You have 20,000 guys in the Married Red Pill, for example. I've got my client list. Everybody else has got their client list. We have very limited amount of time to help people. And so you really don't want to waste your time on a guy who's just gonna pretend or LARP. And then you build on that foundation. So you got your strong list 5x5. If you guys haven't done it, now I know there's a lot of guys that follow me. I've seen a lot of you guys in real life, and you do need to work out because I can tell you aren't. Or if you are, you're lifting the pink weights, so whatever. If you haven't done one, just do that. All it is 5 sets of 5 reps of the 5 big lifts: the squat, the deadlift, the overhead press, the bench press, and the bent over row. As light a weight as you can, or as heavy a weight as you can handle with good form, which is going to be 10% less than you think you can handle at max. Do that for 3 months. Though you just look it up online. There's a great periodization schedule so you can up your strength. And then once you get there, you can kind of switch your goals over to like maybe an 8x8 or start doing triathlons or whatever. And oh, good job, Eli. Or Eli, my bad. The part I'm going to talk about now, we're going to switch over and we're going to talk about the about frame. It's probably one of the hardest to articulate but easiest to understand concepts once you understand it. I've tried dancing around it with a few different ways of describing it. The one I've found most useful is to describe it as a healthy level of narcissism. And if you guys look up the definition of narcissism among the Psychiatric Journal, let's see if I can remember this off the top of my head. Hey, buddy. Pathological levels of I want to say self-respect. I can't remember the word now. You know what? I'm just going to look it up so I don't end up stuttering and stammering on here with you guys. Also, you can tell I'm a little bit on the slow side this morning. I've drank more than any man should over the week. And that sun is a fucking killer. The one good thing about it, though, the gray hairs in my beard, they're starting to look like I got silver coming out of my face here next to the darkness. Okay, so we look up narcissistic personality disorder. And I think it's a great place to start. If you don't understand frame, all you do is you look at this and you walk it back from like a 10 to an 8. Because, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand when they call, and this is why I'm with Tate, that girls aren't bipolar. They don't have borderline personalities. Like, it's not a disease. These are disorders. And if you don't know, the difference between a disorder and a disease is that a disorder describes things that are outside of the normal range of behaviors. A disease is something that's physically damaging your body. So if you have, I mean, if you really think about it, a swole guy like a bodybuilder would technically have a disorder by a psychological standpoint because he's outside of the general range of like body shapes guys have. So here we go. I'll go over a quick wiki on this. If you want to talk about people with narcissistic personality disorder, they are characterized by persistent grandiosity, excessive need for admiration, and a personal disdain and lack of empathy for others. Displays arrogance, a distorted sense of superiority, and they seek to establish abusive power and control over others. Now, if you look at these, take all of those signs and symptoms and you walk them back 20%, 30%. You end up, instead of having persistent grandiosity, you have an inherent sense of self-worth. Instead of an excessive need for admiration, you have a healthy need of boundaries. So like, you will respect my boundaries. You don't need admiration. Just don't, get in my way. Don't disrespect me, whatever. A personal disdain and lack of empathy for the others. That goes from that to being aloof. So if you get, I'm going to close this window now because I'm sure if you guys are chatting, I'm going to miss it. So if you get this, you're understanding now what Rollo means when he talks about men being pathologized. Carl, he's away on an undisclosed location doing an undisclosed activity there, Mohit. And that's all I'm allowed to say. Wolf, BPD, like social anxiety, learned and trained. As far as the why, I couldn't tell you. It doesn't really matter. I just know I've never seen a guy who has his shit together who's dated a girl who's bipolar or has borderline. Every guy, it's always a guy who's a codependent with a huge insecurity. They always seem to find him. Now, you could say that's because that's the kind of guys that they're attracted to, or you could be, those are the kind of guys that bring that out in a girl. Regardless, I just know if you have your act together, you tend to avoid these girls, and that's good enough for me. Plus the fact that I used to live with one when I was a roommate. Great wingman. She was awesome. But if she was dating a guy, she always kind of pulled out her bipolar stuff. But she never pulled it out with me. So I know they can control it if they want to. That's why I don't think it's one of those right things you can use to write off a girl. So the best way to bring up rock solid frame, and it's another one, Carl and I talked about it before, but I'll get into kind of the details of it here. The workout builds the first level of it. Guys need esteem. We don't need self-esteem. We need esteem. So what I mean by that is, for example, during the workouts, if you can handle 5x5 strong lifts, get yourself in a good level of shape, then you start adding on to it. You realize your workouts suck when you have a crappy diet, so you clean up your diet. Most of my audience is American, so most of the guys are probably seeing people that need to lose weight as opposed to people who have to bulk up. So, and here's the thing. So all these things become successes. You all of a sudden are, hey, I went from being a fat bastard into a fairly in-shape guy. Girls are giving me side eye down the street. So that's where your esteem comes from. It comes from doing things. And when you talk about rock solid frame, here's how it comes from, or here's how it manifests. So you spend, let's pick a nice big number, like some guy who's really in it to win it. Let's say 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, 8 hours a day of just working out. If you've been working out for any length of time, and respond in the chat if you have it too, where you've had a leg workout and then you can't walk to your car. Personal story in this, and I remember this. I used to do it when I was training for my bronze cross. I was going to be a lifeguard, and I remember doing a bunch of squats after that because I trained my legs, and it hurt so much to walk. I had a Chevy 3500, and I had to like grab the steering wheel and pull myself in because I just didn't have the leg strength. Other guys will probably tell you a story about how they had to puke during a workout. Point of this is, though, once you start having these hardships under your belt and then the resultant successes, you're going to be a lot less tolerant of people calling you out. And women do this especially. They love to poke at guys to see what their insecurities are. It's not, they're just wired for it. I don't even think they know they're doing it. So if you're a guy who's out of shape, you eat Cheetos and you smoke weed, if a girl starts making fun of your weight, you're insecure about it because you know it's something you got to deal with. On the other hand, if you're a guy who's been working your butt off and maybe you have an extra 10, 15 pounds, it doesn't faze you as much because you know all the work you've put in so far and where you have to go. And that's the first step of building a strong frame. That's why we always say lifting is the number one. The second part of it is building those. I got to find a walked back term from narcissistic. I'll just call it frame. Screw it. Or healthy narcissism, whichever. Well, I'm going to use the terms interchangeably, so just bear with me here. What'll happen then is you start with your map. So your first part is you start lifting, and then you start working on your frame. And that comes with reading a lot of the works that we recommend. That's No More Mr. Nice Guy, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty, the hugest ones. Because most guys aren't starting with 0 for frame. They're starting with -1. They're starting with a codependent mentality. Good way to describe a codependent mentality is think of the divorced mom who treats her kid as an emotional tampon, starts complaining about all the men in her life and using him as like her bestie. That guy, since he always looks to his mom for validation, being he's like a 4-year-old kid or 3-year-old kid, it builds up a certain codependence. He learns the only way to get the attention of the person he loves the most is by having her dump her emotional weight onto him. And so a lot of guys, I mean, I'd argue upwards of 40% of guys are coming from that state. So it's not even a point where they have to worry about toxic masculinity. What they have to worry about is not being a codependent. So you get through When I Say No, I Feel Guilty and No More Mr. Nice Guy. And that's where you develop some activities you develop where you start to learn how and why the things you do are what you do. So for example, when girls have one of their manipulative tactics, there's 5 main ones. I call it like anger. So she'll get anger at you. And then the codependent in you automatically wants to placate that because you don't like aggression, because that means that you're going to be losing the source of validation. So you acquiesce. And then it continues to happen, and you start to reinforce that. And it creates a very unhealthy mental model for the relationship. Second one is crying. A lot of girls will do that, where once you start establishing yourself as your own mental point of origin, or just want to go out with your friends for a beer, whatever it is, and then they start crying and playing wounded. And that taps into your provider instinct, where I need to take care of this girl or she's going to break. It's a very weird, it's a codependent thing, but it's also an ego. Yeah, final boss, you got to get back to the gym. The third one is shame, and you'll see this. I mean, if you're on social media, that's all you see is girls trying to shame guys into this. And all shame is they poke at an insecurity to get you to change your behavior to get them to stop. So it's not even a needing of validation, it's a removing of the opposite of validation. And that's where things like getting a proper workout schedule, getting a proper morning routine, like once you start getting your act together, these things will bother you less because you already know what your goals and what your directions are. You're not insecure about it. You know you've done the best you can on it, so you're good. And that starts you through the first step in a man's map, and that's starting to develop a frame. And this is going to carry over throughout all. We have an argument over how many levels there are. I'll just say 12 now because that's the number I remember from a shout out to Blue Pill Professor. He actually wrote the book on it. He calls it 12 Levels of Dread. It's very nice. The second one is where you get your workout and your diet on point and you start building a mission. And I talked about this in 2017. Most guys don't know what they want. So, and that's fine. The way I put it was, as a man, you're in control of your own life. So you make a promise to yourself 12 months from now, saying you're going to give that guy all the tools he needs to make the proper decision in his own best interest. You can't be trusted with the power. And so that's where your mission right now comes from. And that's where people say, like, be the best version of yourself, be a high quality man. And that's why I can tell there's a lot of guys who are still new to the red pill, because this is the thing they talk about. I want to be the best quality man I have. And they don't realize, like, that's the first step. You technically don't have a mission yet. What you have is a promise to yourself to make yourself available to have a mission. Where do I donate to the Somalian deportee? I have a feeling this has to do with that thing that John did, didn't he? Yeah, I didn't have internet at the time, so I didn't view it. But then everybody started talking about Somalians, so I don't know. And then I brought up a little joke on that. Whatever. Back to Zoltan. He said here, my BPD girl trained herself in the mirror to cry on demand. She said she wanted to be an actress. Yeah. And that's the thing, too. They don't even have to pretend so much. Girls, in the same way that guys have like excessive amounts of testosterone compared to a girl, the fact that they have so little testosterone means they're more susceptible to emotions. Because testosterone, actually, that's one of the benefits of it. And that's another thing that helps you build your frame, which is aloofness. And we'll go over that in a minute. It's that testosterone mutes your emotional feedback loop, I guess. So it's not that you're stoic and you just don't feel anything, because chemically it doesn't get the stimuli to rise to the occasion, rise past your threshold. I'll get to abundance here in a bit. So then you're on your second step. You start building yourself a map, and that's diet, that's workout. A diet is a fairly straightforward one. Now, I know there's a lot of guys who are really good at diet. AJ is big on diet. He's trained in that. I always joke around that I'm the 7 out of 10 man. So I have a good enough diet to get things going for a guy that you don't have to think about it too much. It's pretty straightforward. Just buy a weight scale and go onto the USDA site. They have a great breakdown package of what calories are in each food. Try and get 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass on your body. So I know a lot of guys, if they are like a 240-pound fat body, they try to build a diet as if they're 235 pounds, when in reality, they've got 40 pounds of fat. So they need to be calculating as if they were a 200-pound man, and then calculate your weight for that. Since you have all this extra fat stored, fat doesn't burn energy. So you can have 100 pounds of fat on you, and your daily caloric intake doesn't change from that 100-pound range. So you get your weight scale, you get your 1 gram of protein. I mean, So I used to read the literature on this huge back in the 2000s, and they had found that for people who were in a normal lifestyle, they weren't athletes, they rounded out to about 0.8 grams of protein per. I think since then it's gone up to 1, possibly 1.5. You can go over, and that's not a big problem. The beauty of protein is that it doesn't create an insulin response, and insulin is obviously the primary driver of putting fat into your body and taking fat out of your body. So you can go way overboard on protein and it won't matter too much unless all you eat is protein. But I don't think anybody here is going to get worried about protein poisoning. Yeah, and that's the thing. You can say keto, you can say paleo, you can do intermittent fasting. At the end of the day, any program you do is going to work. If you're starting from zero, everything will work. That's why people become vegetarians and all of a sudden they find out in the first month it's doing well. And then 6 months later, because they didn't do their macros properly, they can't poop right or whatever. So as long as you get a program and stick to it, it really doesn't matter. You weigh your food because most of the time calories are done by weight. A couple numbers you keep in your head, like 1 calorie of carbohydrates is 4, or 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 kilocalories. Same as a gram of protein. A gram of fat is 8, and a gram of alcohol is 7. And then you want to aim for as many avoid calorie dense foods. And that means avoiding, but you don't want to avoid fats. So things like lettuce, cabbage, those are great because they have a lot of fiber. And so they're very light. You can eat a ton of it for very few calories. And so you'll get that satiety. So you don't end up having hunger problems. I just skip all that and I switch to intermittent fasting. If you take a day off of food, it actually helps align your diet with your appetite. Because I know anybody here who's done cuts, feel free to shout out in the chat here. If you've gone on any type of cutting diet, you'll know that managing hunger is probably the most important part of it. And everybody has all these techniques and tricks they use. I find if I just take a day off from eating, drink coffee. Groundshark Coffee's black belt, by the way. I think it's their limited edition. So it was awesome. Nick hooked me up. I don't know when they're coming out with it. I have to check now, but all right, man. First, 2 seconds here. I'll get to that. I'll just finish this thought on the fasting. So then what happened is after that day, you'll find that you'll get hungry in the first 4 hours or whenever you're used to eating. Your body actually has like a mental trigger to it. And then after 15 minutes, it goes away. And then you realize at the end of the day, you're just not hungry. And then the next day, you'll realize you're still not hungry, but you'll eat because it's been 24 hours. You want to get back into it. And then you start to learn. And if you guys don't follow him, Quincy, he's on my Twitter. Awesome dude. 350 pounds he started at. And then I got him on intermittent fasting. And I gave him this one piece of wisdom that I learned from it. It's that hunger isn't a commandment. It's a recommendation. And then he just ran with it, which is awesome. I think he's lost 50 pounds so far. He's leveled out, but he's noticed he's putting on muscle, which is awesome. And he just found that he was pulling 7-day fasts. Once he realized, like, yeah, a little bit of hunger, he just ignored and it goes away. And then now when he was eating, he has much healthier eating habits because he eats when he's hungry. And his appetite isn't based on his schedule. It's not based on being bored. It's actually when he's physically hungry. So that's level 2. Then you get to level 3 where you start to adjust your time based on the value other people provide. And this is one of the more difficult things because a lot of guys go Rambo here. If you guys don't know, Red Pill Rambo is a term. We had it a few years back, and it always came up. I swear to God, every time a guy had a username with a wolf in it, like Alpha as Wolf, Alpha Wolf, whatever they'd call themselves, they always did this. Alpha as Wolf is the one user I remember, and he has a wonderful story. I'm going to make this a clip, by the way. Alpha as Wolf was a guy who was starting his map. He was overweight. His wife didn't have sex with him, and he wanted to find a way out. So everybody was giving him red-pilled advice on what you should do for your workouts, what you should do for frame, what you should do when she's denying you sex. And he just applied it all randomly, just everything. And the analogy, one of the other users there, Jack 10 of Hearts, awesome guy, doesn't like me, but whatever. What he described it as we're telling you how to drive a car, and you're getting into your car, you're opening and closing the door, you're locking the door, you're unlocking the door, you're rolling up and down the windows, you're starting the car, you're turning it off, you're shifting gears, and then you're wondering why the car doesn't drive the way you want. Because if you guys don't notice, if you start taking everything from 48 Laws of Power, from Rational Male, from No More Mr. Nice Guy, there's a lot of stuff that's almost contradictory and telling you to do the exact opposite things. So you really have to understand this as a toolbox and not as a cult, as a clubhouse, or an ideology, whatever stupid words you want to throw onto it. It's a toolbox. And so you still have the responsibility of having an end goal. Now, the problem with this guy, Alpha as Wolf, is he was doing this, and eventually his wife started to get a little freaked out because I guess he took the advice of don't stop initiating with your wife until she gives you a hard no. The problem was he's such a blunt idiot that he didn't understand what that meant, and he got a little bit outside of the comfort zone there. It didn't get criminal, but we essentially had to boot him, like, look, dude, you're not for this. Go back to your blue pill way, because you're going to end up causing somebody some real harm. So we essentially kicked him out. And that's a red pill Rambo. If you just start applying everything haphazardly without thinking it through or applying it to your specific situation. The reason I bring that up is because this is where I bring up my boundary enforcement, my 3 tools. And it's a solid plan. I'm not sure where I got the thing from. I think I've taken it from 5 or 6 different sources and condensed it. So as a man, all you really have to ensure you're getting treated well, and that's what most men want. They want desire from their wives. They want to be treated with a modicum of respect. It's you have your attention, you have your commitment, and you have your affection. That's it. The old days of what guys used to do back in the 1930s, those are over. And thank God for that. We're not animals. Now, if you've been following along before, we're getting into shape and becoming more attractive. Those tools don't matter unless you're an attractive man, a high-value man. If you'll notice, girls always talk about status, high-value man, things that they like. Ignore all that. Pay attention to what works. So girls, and lots of wives will say this, where they don't like their husband with big muscles. And then their husband puts on 20 pounds of muscle and loses 20 pounds of fat. And all of a sudden she can't keep her hands off of him. So why is that? Like, do they not know? Or are they trying to... And there's 2 parts to it. The first one is a fairly straightforward answer. The second one is it's getting a little tinfoil hat, but I think it's got some merit. I just haven't seen enough studies. The first one is that girls don't always think of something through their own lens. That's solipsism. Everything is, how does this affect me? What does this look like to me? She's her one-woman play, and everything else is a set piece. So when you work out and get more attractive, she thinks, why would I do that? And the natural answer is, I would do that when I want to go find myself a man. So she naturally thinks, as soon as you start lifting out and taking care of yourself, that you're doing it to go have sex with another girl, which, I mean, you may be, but that's the first thought her head goes to. The second thought her head goes to is that you working out and being in shape directly reflects her not working out and being in shape. And it's a very emotionally hard thing for her to swallow. So that's why girls tell you not to work out. They don't like big muscles because they don't want to get outside of that comfort zone. Comfort is huge. The second reason, and I don't take this for what it's worth. It's a bit tinfoil hatty. I can't remember which psychological journal I got it from, but it was the theory of women not knowing their own sexual responses. So as a guy, you know when you're turned on by something, you got an erection, you've got like a direct dick to brain pathway to understand what things are attracted to. For a women, they don't have that. They don't have visual and tactile indicators of what they're attracted to. So the idea there is women are more detached from what turns them on versus men. I don't know if it's true. It kind of makes sense. Doesn't really matter on anything I apply. So, take it if you want to, whatever. So your boundaries, they only matter insofar as you're valuable. If she doesn't give a crap about you, if she's settling for you, your boundaries don't matter. As long as the checks keep coming in, as long as she gets her babysitter when she wants to go on a date with the pool boy, doesn't care about your attention, affection, or commitment. And so Once you start establishing your boundaries, this establishes two things. One, you're given a nice feedback indicator about how far along on your map you've come and what successes you have, where your frame is. And two, you start to establish your boundaries so people start to act better around you. If you'll notice, one of the worst things that people do is they tell you what they want from you. I want you to treat me better. You need to respect me. And you'll see this on any type of Twitter beef. And the first thought and the people's natural instinct is just to be argumentative with it. So it's really counterintuitive. This is why you have to act, don't tell. So at first you're going to, and I called it the gym bag routine. You pull your attention. So you're just not there. If you're trying to sleep with your wife and she doesn't want to, she doesn't find you attractive, pick a time that you go to work out, say 7 o'clock. 6:30, you start hitting on her because you want to sleep with her. And she shuts you down, sometimes very harshly. A lot of guys get that. And this is how you first start to establish your boundary. You grab your gym bag, you're going to the gym. Doesn't matter what she says, doesn't matter what she does. It doesn't matter how butthurt you are of being shot down for sex by the girl you bought a $10,000 ring for. None of it matters. You walk out with a smile, you come back with a smile. At first, she won't care. She's like, oh, whatever. I don't want to touch him anyway. Just go out and spend an hour. But eventually, what happens is, A, you start to respect your time. Because like I said, those guys that are puking during workouts, having a hard time walking to their car, their workouts become almost like a drug. So it's like a good thing. People like them. They enjoy this time. They're looking forward to it. And then you start to realize, like, what value are you adding to my life that I'm going to cancel a workout to hang with you? So a guy starts to value his own time. And then at the second part of it, once you start to become more of an attractive man and you leave, that loss of your presence actually starts to have an impact. And so people start acting in a way that they know will keep you around. Of course, you're going to still go to the gym anyway after you have sex, and you're creating what these are. It's healthy mental models or healthy feedback loops. Quickly here on the chat, and then I'm going to carry on. Caffeine, water, use the toilet. Yes, use the toilet. That's probably some strong red pill advice. Yeah, so here's the thing. Like, Eeg? I'm going to call you Eeg. I know I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Bear with me. Here's the thing. So the way you're describing it, him working out puts financial pressure on me, makes her think about her age. When she sees me 3 months later with big biceps, she's showing me to her friends. This is what I mean about frame. Do you see here how you're describing it? It's she. It's you're doing something, and this is her reaction to it. It's essentially validation seeking. Now, I know you didn't mean it that way, but in the language, that's how it comes out. And a lot of guys do it this way, and they waste a lot of time. So when you're working out to become more attractive, you're not doing that to teach a girl a lesson. It's not a revenge fantasy, and you're not doing it because you've made this deal that she will find you attractive and have sex with you if you're attractive. Both of those are horrible mental models. They call them covert contracts. They call them covert because you didn't actually tell the girl what her part of the deal was. You just assumed she knew. And if you know anything about girls, is that they hate being obliged to do anything. And so they'll screw that up on purpose if they're even aware of it. So like I said, you're working out for you. You're working out because you 12 months from now is going to have a lot of access to good women. And so you're setting them up for the tools of success. Now, which women attached to it? You got to be outcome independent to that. I think it's book 1, page 1 on a guy's map is you're eventually going to start getting the sex that you desire. It just may not be with the girl you started with. Frame is not having an opinion and sticking to it. It's not an opinion. Frame is having everything that you do. Let's say, for example, actually, here's the best way to describe it. So when I said your first initial 12 months, your goal is to become a high value man. So that way that man in 12 months can make a decision based on what you want to do with the rest of your life. So anything that gets in the way of that is outside of your frame. And anything outside of your frame is either amusing, intriguing, or funny. So what do I mean by that? Case in point, the gym bag routine. You're going to go to the gym because you're a fat ass and you want to lose some weight and you need to get some strength. You need to get your testosterone levels in check, all that stuff. So anything that's outside of that is amusing, intriguing, or funny. If your girl's nagging, saying she doesn't like big muscles, she wants you to come home. If she makes up some emergency that you have to deal with that's clearly not an emergency, that's outside of your frame, which at that moment is I'm going to this gym. Now, the worst thing you can do is act angry about it. Like, I'm trying to do this. What are you doing? So it's either amusing Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I'll be back in an hour. Leave with a smile, come back with a smile. Even if you're angry, even if you are insecure, even if you're butthurt about it, leave with a smile, come back with a smile. You're faking it till you make it here. Or it could be intriguing. Maybe she does something that's completely out of the blue and like, all right, you got my attention. That's kind of strange. And then she has one more chance to kind of show that she's more valuable than what you're doing at the moment. Or it's just funny. Like I remember some guys have had it where their girls physically latch onto them like a spider monkey, try to keep them from going out to the gym. It was the weirdest thing. And they just kind of couldn't help but laugh and then pry her off and head down there. It's an awesome character, Ray Donovan, Red Pill ASF. Who I don't know who Ray Donovan is. Anyway, so we got to this part. So you're starting to establish boundaries and you're starting to realize that you don't have to put up with crap because you have a reason to do something more valuable. Then once we get there, this is when we start building on these successes. Next step would be fashion or style. You got to build your sense of style. That's getting your clothes fitted. That's learning how clothes are put together and giving a crap about how you look. I know Tanner, he loves to rag on cargo shorts and flip-flops, and I don't blame him because I don't care if you guys like them or not. They look ridiculous. And I am betting, if you ask the guy who loves them, the reason he wears them is because if he wears something else, it'll make people think that he's gay. I have a feeling it ties down to high school. That's why everybody wears hoodies and jeans, because it's very nondescript and you don't stand out and nobody calls you effeminate if you're wearing them. To that, I say you can always be the gay friend that all the girls in the circle sleep with. So being gay is not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, Paulo's catching on. You be the main character in your own life. So for style, I say fit matters more than anything. If you get, and Americans, I feel bad for you guys, man, because your clothing choices are just horrendous, especially if you want to buy a dress shirt. Everything fits like a tent. Armholes are coming way down to here. And this is one of those things that's nice. Yes, I have a skincare routine. I'll get to that too. So let me talk about my clothing routine first. So for me, I have a weird shaped body. I'm very lower body dominant. I've got big legs. I actually have to get pants and hem them in 2 inches because my legs are so big. That's why Pat's comment about me skipping leg day hurt my feelings. So I get custom fitted clothes or I tailor my clothes, which isn't a big deal. You don't need tons of clothes. You can buy the cheapest H&M khakis anywhere. You take them to a good tailor. You get him to taper it in, taper the leg to the proper length, and you're basically going to look like $1 million off a $40 pair of pants. I'd say the 2 big things, if nothing else, is make sure your waistline is good and make sure your hem length is good. The hem length is the space from your balls down to your ankle. The reason that's important is because if it's too long, it creates a break. Now, for clothes, you want a little bit of a break. For jeans, you kind of want it, and a break is where it has those little folds by your ankle. For normal pants, you maybe want a little bit of a break. If you have longer than that, what's going to happen is it's going to bunch around the ankle or around the kneecaps where your legs bend, and the whole thing is just going to look weird, especially if you're not a tall guy. That's going to cut your body off and make you look shorter. So this is why fit's important, more so than any other thing. Same thing with shirts. They're called darts. If you haven't seen them before, it's where on the back of your shirt down here, they actually take in the material and they sew it down from the back there. And that'll give yourself a V taper. Especially if you're in shape, you're going to want this because you have to buy bigger clothes just to fit your shoulders and your neck. But you don't want to look like a fatty. So you start tapering your clothes in, you hem your clothes properly. You can wear the same $5 t-shirts or the same $10 dress shirts and the same $40 khakis, and you'll still look $1 million better if you just hem it in. Clothes that fit. No, don't get smaller than your number. The last thing you want to do is have clothes that you start to get any pinching. Like where you start to get this. I'll tell you guys, actually, funny story. When I was teaching at Fleet School, we had to do a parade. We brought a QL5 course, which is the guys who had done about 4 years, and they're coming in for their advanced training to learn how to be supervisors. So during our one parade, there was this one guy who sailed on the tanker. I can't remember his name, but he was a complete bag of hammers, completely useless. He went to the parade and he didn't take care of any of his stuff. He got stuff that was too thin. His stuff was so skinny, even his hat bowed in the top. His double-breasted suit had pulled against the edge. His pants looked like yoga pants. They were so tight on him. We walked into parade and I just walked in and I saw like all of my peers there, all the teachers just standing in a line. I'm like, what the heck are they lining up for? And I walk, and they're taking turns berating this guy for embarrassing the whole department in front of the rest of the fleet. And so finally, by the time the fifth one got through, the senior instructor's like, all right, guys, you go back to class. You're skipping the parade and we'll deal with this later. Because they're like, right now, you're more embarrassing than I need to dispense justice. And then the guy was so stupid, he like walked past the chief bosun mate, who's like the main guy who runs the parades. Guy you really don't want to mess with. Next to the coxswain, he's probably the saltiest guy. And he walked into his office and he asked him a question. And I don't know why he did that. But then as soon as the chief bosun mate saw him, he just screamed at him. And then he brought the senior instructor in. So the senior instructor had to scream at him, and they're both screaming at him. So they brought him back to the school, and we all had to take, like, none of us could berate him at that point because he just looked so funny. Nobody could keep a straight face. So finally the chief had to come down and do it. And he ended up crying. It was the most awkward thing ever. But yeah, the point of the story is get clothes that fit. Don't get slightly smaller. Just measure your number properly. Hey, Freelance, thanks for catching me live here. Normally, these are more of a conversation. I have a guest, but both of my guests weren't able to make it today, so we're playing with what we got. We got another 20 minutes here. I'm just going over style. So yeah, the fittings. If you haven't seen it, you look up measurement charts. You learn to take your own measurements. I would say that's more important too for your workouts than it is to do your weight. Measurements don't lie. If you're putting on a bunch of muscle and you're losing a small amount of fat, you're actually going to look like you're gaining weight, and some guys might worry about that. But the tape doesn't lie. If your waist is going down, your chest is going up, then you know it's a good direction. So I always suggest use the measurements as opposed to doing the scale. So anyways, if you've been keeping track, we got you're building yourself as your mental point of origin. You're establishing boundaries. You've got a goal. You're working out. You're eating right. You're looking better. You're dressing well. And you're building all this stuff together. Now, the only thing you're missing now is that you're probably still unattractive. You still don't talk to women. And that's where we suggest you start learning pickup again. Now, the game's changed a lot, and a lot of the techniques and the rote memorization, those canned routines, they don't really work anymore, but the fundamentals are still good. And so you get a guy to learn pickup. Doesn't matter, Tom Torreo, TD Game, Troy Francis, doesn't matter who you learn from, you're just learning it. And a lot of stuff. Sales will be the same way. If you have a sales job, you're probably going to pick up a lot of this stuff too. It's that art of persuading. And then you're going to start using that with your added style, with your added fitness level. You're going to start doing that. And they suggest you start doing it with your wife or your girlfriend. Whether you're with her or not, whether she's completely cold or doesn't like you, or she still has too much baggage of how much of a useless tard you used to be, that's fine. You're just practicing on somebody who's there with you right now. And you're giving her, and the rule is she gets first crack at your libido. She doesn't get sole custody. And you eventually get to the point where if she shoots you down, all right, that's fine. And then you go out and do your own thing. Same as like the gym bag. But maybe this time you go to Starbucks, you read a book. And then if you see a girl there, you'll talk to her. Maybe you picked up Daybang and you're practicing old man conversation. Maybe it's mystery and you're going to try an opinion opener. Doesn't really matter. You're not trying to sleep with anybody. You're just making yourself a conversation with strangers, engaging people. And then eventually, as that happens, you're going to notice that you start to, through experience, become more attractive when you speak with people. People start to resonate better with you. And as you get into better shape, the things that weren't so good before become good now. So you start to see what a difference your attractiveness makes. And what'll happen then is it spreads into the next level. At first, you're just doing it on your own when your wife shoots you down. And then eventually you start to just do it naturally. That's going to be your normal way of being. And this is where a lot of guys screw up. The ramble thing that guys do right here is they try hitting on the waitress at the restaurant. Not how it works. Be friendly with the waitress. Talk with people. Be generally charming, because that's who you are now. You've basically built yourself up to be this charming, attractive man. So of course, people are going to see you act charming and attractive towards them. The goal here is twofold, is that you're going to start getting indicators of interest. And the thing about girls is the most attractive part of you is pre-selection. So as girls start giving you side eye, as girls start engaging you with conversation, as they start getting a little bit flirty, the girl you're with will start to notice. Now, whether she notices or not, it doesn't matter to you. You're just being attractive to as many people as you can. You're starting to build abundance. For most wives, this is about where it ends, because they realize that they're falling behind and they need to latch onto this guy and start putting in some effort or they're going to lose him. And if the girl still doesn't, At that point, you kind of have your answer on if she's in it or she's not in it. So you need to detach your emotional investment, and that's when you start building your abundance further. So you flirt, maybe do what we call catch and release. That's like flirt with a girl, then thank her, wish her well before you do anything that crosses the line of Jesus. And then by then, you've probably reached your 12-month mark. And this is where you got to start making the hard decisions. So let's take a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, you got a girl that still won't fuck you, is nothing but disrespectful, completely argumentative. She's a little bit frumpy. She doesn't do anything for you. You, on the other hand, are attractive, you're fit, you're dressed sharply. Girls love to be around you. Guys love to hang out with you. You start making that decision. I think my decision is I'm going to ditch this girl and go make my way with somebody who's more receptive to what I bring to a relationship. And that's when you get a divorce game. I won't do it on this podcast because that's a fairly lengthy topic. We're really just skimming the surface here. And plus, I don't want to give away my consulting service stuff right away. So that's what I do with the map. How important is to be well dressed at work? It's important to be well dressed everywhere. Now, actually, I shouldn't say well dressed. I'll say appropriately dressed, because some guys can pull off jogging pants and a tank top, or flip flops and cargo shorts, or not cargo shorts, but like normal shorts and a tank top at the beach. Just appropriately dressed. I think you should get to the bunker first. And so this is when you start to have your first mission. After about a year of eating humble pie for a year and building yourself up from zero, you build your first mission. In my case, mine was never to be taken advantage of or taken for granted again. It's a fairly simple mission. How it manifests all depends on the opportunities that are in front of me, so it's really good. And I'm really curious. We're going to end the cast in about 15 minutes here, but at the end, feel free to throw some comments or tweet at me what your guys' missions are if you've made it past that point. If not, high value. That's all respectful too. Just tell me that you got back into lifting. I want to hear guys getting their act together, because that's the whole point of this stuff. It's not about the money, because if it was, I'd stick with my corporate gig. It pays way better than you guys. No offense. So here, Paulo, he put a comment in here. It says, "Dread game. Make your wife or girlfriend play on the defense." I don't think you're understanding it properly, and there's a nuance to it. You're not dreading your wife or girlfriend to get her to do anything. That's a covert contract, and it's not going to work. They'll see right through it. They'll call your bluff, because girls always call bluffs. They're hardwired for it. And all you're going to do is end up butthurt because you did everything you were supposed to do and she didn't respond in kind. Dread is just a fancy word that we use to make things sound edgy. Like, we have to use things. We have to use the term from the Matrix, the red pill, because it's catchy enough to get guys to attach to it. We have to say things like dread because it makes guys feel empowered. Like, yeah, dread. If we'd call it, that's why CrossFit has like combat names as their exercises. Ignore the idea of dread. It's just a word to elicit an emotional response. We're borrowing women's tools here. We're emotionally doing a bait and switch. We sell you on revenge, and then we deliver self-actualization. So that's the secret of the red pill, if you guys wanted to know. But dread is a branch swing adopted for male sensibilities. This person's not doing enough in your life to be valuable enough to keep. Fine. So you're taking a deliberate set of steps to detach yourself from this relationship and put yourself in position for another one. That's it. How she acts doesn't change. The stay plan is the same as the go plan. Hopefully that helps articulate it better. Yes, skincare routine. Thank you, Philbert. My skincare routine is fairly straightforward. By the way, so I met with my brother on vacation here and his new girlfriend, and she thought that he was the older brother because I have the more youthful face. My routine is fairly straightforward. I exfoliate. I actually have, the Axe loofah that looks like a tire, because, men need tires. But just every now and then you give your face a scrub, get rid of all the dead skin cells, and just use a moisturizer and make sure you drink a lot of water. It's literally that simple for me. For moisturizers, I don't mind. I'm not going to buy a $100 fancy moisturizer, but I'm not going to buy a $2 one from the grocery store either. I find like you get to that $20 range, you'll get one that lasts you like 6 months. It's perfect. Another thing I do in the winter, because I find the winter sucks the moisture right out of you, and I end up with huge dry skin. What I'll do is I'll actually take baby oil into the shower. And then once you're done showering, you give yourself like a nice little coat. And the idea is it helps you hold moisture in, so you don't end up losing so much. You don't oil yourself up like you're doing a bodybuilding thing. It's just like a nice thin coat. Sounds a bit weird, but once you start doing it and you realize you don't have like dry elbows and you don't have gray skin hanging off of you, you probably won't go back. And that's really all there is to it. I wish I could say there was some fancy routine and a fancy combination of products and you eat guayaba juice, but no, man. Most moisturizers don't actually moisturize. All they do is they moisturize the dead cells already on you, so you scrape those off, and then the moisturizer is just a protective coat over your body to keep moisture from escaping your body. The rest of it is just keeping yourself hydrated. Once your body starts losing moisture and it starts having a fight for all the water it can get, it takes it out of your skin, puts it towards your vital organs. So that's why a lot of you guys are going to have dry skin. Yeah. See, that's the thing, Vern. Like, everybody loves to make red pill out to be secret knowledge. They make taking care of yourself out to be this nice, fancy routine. It's really simple consistency, and that's it. Stay out of the sun as much as you can. I got dark as hell here. I was in the shade. I got maybe 20 minutes of sun for this entire week, and I've out darkened everybody. Any band of exfoliating scrub you recommend? Like I said, I just bought that little Axe loofah that looks like a tire. It's got the red scrubby side and then the black loofy side, and I just take the red scrubby side and just give myself a once over. Just something to scrub the skin. You don't want to do it until you're red, like you're not trying to scrape the skin off. It's not like Gattaca where you're taking all genetic traces, but all you need to do is scratch off the levels. You can use the micro beads in that, but I keep hearing people talking about how it kills whales and ups your estrogen, so I don't even bother with that. Simpler the better. Okay. So we're going to do, I don't have anything else planned for the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to go through your guys' comments and see if I can address any of the questions you guys got here. I definitely have to replay this one to catch the beginning. Great stream. Thank you, Freelance Ronan. I appreciate it. Feel free to like, subscribe, smash that like button, recommend it to your friends. For Future MD, when does the book coming out? The book is coming out when I finish the book. It's I've got all the points that I want to talk about, all the material. I've mostly got things written down. I find it's a hell of a job to put it into a narrative that you can read from start to finish that makes sense. So I'm getting there. My end goal is I want to have it finished and on shelves by the end of the year. So we'll see how well I stick to that. Or if I end up with one of those guys who has had the same book on pre-order for 5 years now. You can tell somebody that. Tell whoever you want that. Freelance Ronan, do you think they would hire a 27-year-old guy for sales with zero experience? I'm not the best sales guy, but Hacker Boy, the one thing I've seen on this, and that's the beauty of it, is when you're interviewing for a job, you're doing a sales pitch right there. You're selling them on your skills. So if you're able to get that sales job at 27 with zero experience, that means they can see you're a good enough salesman to sell them on it. And there's all kind of techniques people use. I won't get into it too much because I'm going to stick to my lane here, but I'll skip over here. Red Pill Vegan Veteran, man, I'm recognizing your name. Ryan, my boy has 2 kids and his girlfriend is controlling and manipulative. He's blue pill and beta. She's now talking about up and cuckoldry. So he's just going to get divorce raped? Probably. I hate to say it. If he's not willing to advocate for himself, she's going to take as much from him as she can. I wish I could offer something, but he's really gotten to like the 2-yard line and he's asking us how to win the Super Bowl. It's a very difficult thing. Like I said, the best he can do is just go through the roadmap, just like I described there, get into the material and start doing his thing. And then however things happen is how they happen. There's nothing you can really do about it at this point. And then to JW Hames, does Dread Game only work as a guy in a relationship, or should you be using it as a single guy as well? And how? If you're in a short-term relationship, or if she's a plate, or if it's just like a brand new girlfriend, just next her. It's way easier. Thank her for teaching you the blind spots and wish her well. You don't want to invest more than you have to. Dread is specifically useful for a guy who can't just next a girl right away. That's the whole reason it exists. Otherwise, the red pill advice between a married and a single guy would just be next the bitch. If you have real estate together, if you have a kid together, if you're in a position where you can't replace her in a week, then yeah, a little bit of dread game is fine because that's the point of it. But if you're just with a girlfriend that you've been with less than a year, you have no kids, just ditch her. Why would you root through garbage? It's the iron rule. Why would you root through garbage when you can find somebody who's more willing, who doesn't have the baggage of how shitty you used to be attached to it? Beta male strategies. Love the username, by the way. How do you make yourself feel entitled to the hottest girl so game comes easy? That is the way you frame that is a horrible question. First off, nobody's entitled to anything. It's been the rule as long as pickup's been around. It's been around since like the early 90s. Game doesn't help you get that girl. It helps you get more girls. And what you want to do is get enough girls where the hottest girl doesn't matter to you, because that is nothing to do with the girl. That's the LBG technique of how do I get the hot blondes and vagine. Girls are hot, but everything's like, lots of girls are hot. There's tons of hot girls. What you want to get to the point of is the point where whether she's attractive or not doesn't change how you act. What you want there is you want a status symbol because you're insecure about your value as a man. And so you're using that as a surrogate. What I would suggest for you is start with the bush leagues. One of my favorite field reports. I've really got to bring it over to the new blog. It's red pill even works when you're, oh no, not the 52-year-old one. He was 50, got divorced, and he was getting back in the game. And he didn't know how to hit on girls. He said a 4 out of 10, a little portly Puerto Rican girl. And then he got himself a black girl. He had like 3 or 4 out of 10s on his roster. And he wasn't too proud about it. He's like, yeah, they weren't the best girls, but you know what? I'm getting laid on the regular, and it's nice. And so what he found then is that he was going out and meeting girls. He called this one like a 7 out of 10, older, but 7 in his eyes. She started giving him a bunch of grief, and he's like, oh, she is a lot cuter than the one I got back home, but the one back home is going to make me dinner, and we're going to have sex. So is she hot enough for me to put up with this? And then he started building abundance off of it. So to answer your question, start in the bush leagues. Get the girl that you can get, and then worry about getting hotter and hotter from there. And then you're going to learn the nuance of how you value women in your life. Attractiveness is definitely going to get her through the door, but after a certain threshold, you realize she has to be more value, even if it's just for an 8-hour girlfriend or a plate. Because if she's a supermodel, but all she does is berate you, I guarantee you're going to get tired of that really quickly. Second question here from Andy. Does social media likes and comments from a girl mean anything? Nope. The only thing that means something is if she lets you put your dick in her. Everything else is just placation. They're very easy to fake signals. I mean, you talk to Tate when he does his thing. His girls act all flirty. They tell you they're the greatest man ever. They'll fill your ego. Doesn't mean anything. Will she sleep with you? If not, then that's not genuine desire, and that's not genuine validation. Like I said, go and read my essay on sex and violence. It's the 2 measures of a man. Can you fight and can you fuck? If she's not willing to touch you that way, then everything she's given you is lies. Act accordingly. Don't be mad about it. Just the way the game works. Next question from Eli Iris. Question. You got 3 girls in your frame. Girls aren't in your frame. You're in your own frame. They just want to be in your frame, or they want to be in your world. The frames, or whatever. Anyways, you got 3 girls in your frame, and they're competing. Boyfriends are there too. Very invisible. What do? I don't want to die. Don't threaten them. Yeah, you're just being your charming self. You have no idea what's going on. You're playing aloof. If girls are flirting with you and they got boyfriends, if you're worried about the boyfriends, like, are you sleeping with all 3 of the girls? If then you're worried about the boyfriends getting petty and vindictive, I would say if that's a worry for you, then don't sleep with the girls. But I would say this, for most of the guys, and I don't know if he's in the chat right now, so he'll bring it up. Once he got divorced from his wife, he started playing the field, and he noticed a lot of girls in relationships were attracted to him because he was doing what their boyfriends weren't. And every time there was a confrontation, the guy wasn't, like, he acted angry, but he wasn't trying to fight. It was more like desperate plays on their part to get validated that you're not supposed to be sleeping with my girl. So I would find that 99% of the time, guys aren't going to do anything, which is really sad. If we were in a place where if a guy got cheated on and he went and beat up the other guy, we'd probably have a lot more men with better frame out there. It'd be a step in the right direction. But as it stands now, like I said, I can't tell you not to worry about it just in case you actually get beat up. But yeah. David, what changes to people around me if I change from someone who doesn't dress well to someone who is dressing up? Is my image ruined and forever in regards of looks in their heads? Don't care about that. Don't care. But the psychological thing is people have mental schemas. So they think of you as an archetype. And if you change that archetype, people generally react poorly because it's easier for them to tell you to start acting the way you've always acted than it is for them to mentally recalibrate what you are like in their head. But if that even enters your thought, then you're doing it wrong. You're just doing your thing. If anybody calls you on it saying you've changed, you're different, just shrug. I don't know. I think I bought some new socks. Just laugh it off. The more normal you treat any changes you do, the easier it's going to be for people to adjust to it. As soon as you start treating it like an event, that's when it becomes a battle, and then you're in another person's frame. It's a waste of time. Got juice. My question is, I know how to talk to women. The problem is getting them to come over, and I'm missing, if you know. This is the one where Carl does better on it. I find just always be escalating. I'm an old mystery guy, so I like running through the attraction, comfort, seduction routine there. The problem is, and if I could take a guess on here, Juice, is that you are not being upfront with your intentions. I mean, you don't walk up and say, yeah, I'm going to sleep with you. But you walk up, and as you talk with her, you're first gauging to see if you're comfortable enough around her that she's not going to be crazy and try and stab you in your sleep. Once you got that, you want to have a sexual relationship with her. No shame in that. Guys like sleeping with girls. Who'd have thunk? Everything about you needs to be screaming that. So you're making things sexual. You're touching her, to make sure she's good with it. And these are like those little things you do. So like you touch a girl on the arm, she responds positively, you mean that's a yes signal. If you touch her on the arm and she pulls away, that's obviously a no signal. It's not sexual. And then you pull away, go do your own thing, find somebody else. But the reason you're probably not closing is either A, your logistics suck. Like if she told you at any point during that date, I want to sleep with you, take me home now. If you don't have a plan for that, then you don't have logistics. Get those in order and then be honest with your intentions. You're always escalating. I won't go into the nuances of it because we don't have the time here. I've only got a couple more minutes. I'm going to close off on the quarter 2 so I can get ready for Redman Group. For Future MD, by the way, I love these coffee talks. Keep them coming. Thanks, man. By the way, it's really nice to be sobering up with a coffee now. Ige Ceylan, I realize you can't give any red pill advice to people in a higher social status than you are or think they are from, even if they are painfully beta, and you'll get in a fight if they are type A. Yeah, I just don't give people advice anyway. Most of the time when you want to red pill your friends, it's because you're looking for validation. Hey, man, I did this. You should do this too. It's a great post by Whisper on Reddit. If you look it up in the red pill, it's called, you got to stick your head in this bucket right now. If you can look it up, it's hilarious. And it kind of establishes why you don't want to red pill your friends because it looks just ridiculous. Don't talk to them about it. Live it. If you can't look like an attractive enough man that people want to know what you're doing, then you're not going to red pill them anyway. All you're showing them is a loser who's telling them how to pretend to not be a loser, and they won't buy it. That's why I always tell guys, like, stop telling people red pill. Like, just stop. You're really, really killing our marketing. Just be attractive. Ruben here. What is the best start to learn game? I always start with the mystery method. Look up Mystery's work. He had DVDs back in the day. I would say Daybang by Roosh is still a good one. Kind of sucks how he found, how he's gone extra religious now, but I still think it's a nice one. I've heard good things about Tom Torreo. For my people that I consult, I also have like a Tinder guide that we've built from the Mallard Cove Red Pill Tinder guide, which is awesome. So Vegan, you found it. Yeah, Whisper Host Fire. He's awesome. He's one of the original guys that nobody's ever heard of, but really should have. He's right up there with Archwinger, I'd say. So I got one more minute. I'm going to do my shilling here. Thank you guys for showing up to the cast. Normally these things are more conversational, but I'm hoping this still got some value for you guys. Smash that subscribe and like button, bell notifications, get the thing, check out the videos. I also have a Patreon page that's _Rian_Stone. So I give a lot of premium content to those guys outside of the loop, as well as the second tier where I offer a group consulting where I kind of do something like this, but it's more geared towards their specific situations. I'm actually going to set that one up now for the guys, so I got to check on after this. They've been very patient so far this month, so thank on them. As always, you can go to my website, ryanstone.com. I have a lot of my writings there. I as well have my full-on male action plan consulting service, as well as one-off calls. So if you're the kind of guy that's trying to build himself from zero to hero, take the full 12 months, I've got you covered on there. We add accountability to it. We offer a lot of the details. I build up your own personalized, it's almost like an autobiography in the future that you can read on yourself on what you need to do and how to get there. Very deliberate steps. At the same time, if you're 90% of the way there and you just need to ping a single problem off, I also offer a one-off call. Feel free to get on those. Once you sign up to either one, you're going to get a confirmation email with a booking link. The booking link is the way we get our one-on-one calls. We can do it via Skype if you want anonymity, or we can also do the Google Hangouts, either way. So I'm going to end off. Yeah, sorry, Alex. I'm going to end off right now. I got to get ready for the Red Man group. So in 15 minutes, we're going to get on with Rolo and friends, guys. It's been an exciting time. I want to thank you, and I'll catch you later. I'm going to go have some breakfast. Cheers.